The Wolf on the Road. Chapter 3. The Whispering Woods. James sped down the highway, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. The events of Black Hollow swirled in his mind, an unsettling storm of images. The gas station, the note, and most of all, the creature with glowing eyes watching him as he fled. He couldn't shake the feeling that it was still following him, lurking just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to strike again. The road ahead was a narrow, winding stretch that cut through dense woods, the trees on either side towering over him like dark sentinels. The headlights of his truck pierced the fog, but only just. The beams were swallowed by the night after a few feet, leaving James feeling as though he was driving through a tunnel of shadows. The oppressive silence returned, broken only by the soft hum of the engine and the occasional rustling of leaves and the wind. As the truck twisted through the bends of the road, James couldn't shake the sensation that the woods were watching him. The trees seemed to bend toward the road, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Shadows flickered at the edge of his vision, darting between the trunks, but every time he turned his head to look, there was nothing there. The whispering started quietly at first, so faint he thought it was his imagination. But as he drove deeper into the woods, the whispers grew louder, like a chorus of voices carried on the wind. They swirled around him, indistinct and haunting, their words impossible to make out, but their tone unmistakably sinister. James felt a chill creep down his spine. His instincts told him to keep driving, not to stop until he was miles away from this place. But something was pulling at him, a strange compulsion to listen to the whispers, to understand what they were saying. He glanced at the rearview mirror again, half expecting to see the creature's glowing eyes staring back at him. But the road behind was empty. The only thing visible was the dense fog and the endless stretch of trees. Yet the feeling of being watched was stronger than ever. Up ahead, the road curved sharply, and James instinctively slowed down. As he rounded the bend, his heart leaped into his throat. There, standing in the middle of the road, was a figure, a woman, her long dark hair cascading over her shoulders, her pale face barely illuminated by the truck's headlights. James slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching as the truck skidded to a halt just inches from the woman. His heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline surging through his veins. She didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there, staring at him with wide, unblinking eyes. For a moment, either of them moved. James's hands shook as he gripped the steering wheel, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The whispers had stopped, leaving a deafening silence in their wake. The woman's lips moved, but no sound came out. She pointed into the woods, her gaze never leaving his. James followed her finger, his eyes straining to see what she was pointing at. The fog was thicker there, clinging to the trees like a living thing. Shadows moved within it, shifting and writhing as if something was waiting just beyond the edge of the road. The whispers returned, louder this time, more insistent. They seemed to be coming from the woods, beckoning him to leave the safety of the truck and step into the darkness. Every instinct James had screamed at him to stay where he was, to hit the gas and drive far away from this place. But the woman's eyes held him, her silent command impossible to ignore. Reluctantly, James opened the door, the cold night air rushing in as he stepped out of the truck. His boots crunched on the gravel as he walked toward the woman, his heart pounding with every step. She turned and began to walk toward the trees, her movements slow and deliberate, as if leading him to something he wasn't sure he wanted to see. The fog swirled around them as they entered the woods, the trees closing in overhead like a canopy of shadows. The whispers grew louder, filling James's ears with their eerie song, but he still couldn't make out the words. His pulse raced, every sense on high alert as they ventured deeper into the woods. Suddenly, the woman stopped. She turned to face him, her expression unreadable, and pointed to a spot on the ground. James hesitated, his breath catching in his throat as he followed her gaze. There, partially buried beneath the roots of an ancient tree, was something metallic. James knelt down, brushing aside the dirt and leaves to reveal what looked like an old iron trap, its rusted jaws broken and bent as if something had torn it apart with unimaginable strength. The whispers grew frantic now, swirling around him like a storm. The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to press in closer, suffocating him. James's hand shook as he touched the trap, a strange sense of familiarity washing over him. Before he could react, the woman spoke, her voice barely more than a whisper, but clear enough to send a jolt of fear through him. "It's not done with you," she said. "The curse runs deeper than you know." James stumbled back, his heart racing as the woman's words sank in. The ground beneath him seemed to shift, the fog swirling up from the earth like smoke. The woman's form flickered, and for a moment, James thought he saw something else, something monstrous beneath her human appearance. He backed away, his instincts screaming at him to get out of there. The whispers were deafening now, a cacophony of voices all screaming the same thing: run. Without another thought, James turned and bolted back toward the truck, his boots slipping on the damp leaves as he ran. The fog seemed to close in around him, the shadows reaching out to grab him, but he didn't stop. He could feel the presence behind him, something chasing him through the woods, its footsteps heavy and fast. James reached the truck and threw himself inside, slamming the door shut just as something crashed into the side of the vehicle. He didn't look back. He jammed the key into the ignition and gunned the engine, peeling out of the woods as fast as the truck would go. As he sped down the road, the whispers finally faded, leaving only the pounding of his heart and the low hum of the engine. But even as he drove away, James knew that whatever had cursed him wasn't finished. And this time, it wasn't just after him.